3 men vanished from one of the most secure prisons in the country without a trace. No broken bars, no tunnels, no guards overpowered, just gone. For 6 months, they meticulously planned their escape from the Orange County Men's Jail, a maximum security facility in California. The mastermind behind this daring plan was Hossein Nayeri, an Iranian-American with a dark reputation. A cunning manipulator, he had the ability to twist anyone's mind to his will. But what no one saw coming was how dangerously close he would come to freedom, leaving behind only scraps of evidence and one chilling question. How did they do it? Their escape was nearly unthinkable, relying on makeshift tools, a contraband cell phone, and sheer nerve. But even the most brilliant plans can be unraveled by greed, betrayal, and split-second choices that turn a calculated risk into a desperate gamble. This is a tale filled with shocking turns, suspense, and an ending you won't believe. It was 2016. The Orange County Men's Jail stood as an impenetrable fortress, a 5-story maze of steel and concrete designed to hold some of the most dangerous criminals under lock and key. Over 60 inmates were crammed into shared spaces, constantly watched by guards. Privacy was non-existent. For Hossein Nayeri, this prison wasn't just another holding cell, it was an obstacle to overcome. Born to Persian immigrants and raised in Fresno, California, he had always been rebellious, constantly pushing boundaries. A brief stint in the Marine Corps ended in a discharge, and by 2012, he had become infamous for his violent crimes. He was accused of kidnapping a marijuana dispensary owner, dragging him into the Mojave Desert, and torturing him for ransom in unimaginable ways. To law enforcement, Nayeri was a nightmare, smart, resourceful, and willing to do anything to avoid prison. When authorities closed in, he fled the country, escaping to Iran, where he remained beyond the reach of US law enforcement for 2 years. But the FBI had a trump card, his ex-wife. They used her as bait to lure him back to the US, where he was finally captured and sent to Orange County Jail to await trial. However, Nayeri had no intention of staying. For him, prison was just the starting point of his next plan. Locked in a high-security unit, Nayeri knew he needed help. He found his partners in crime, Bac Duong, a seasoned Vietnamese gang member with underground connections, and Jonathan Thieu, a young man entangled in gang violence. Together, they devised a plan to exploit the jail's weaknesses. The first discovery came when Nayeri noticed a ventilation grate behind one of the bunks. To most inmates, it was just part of the wall. To him, it was an opportunity. The only problem? It was sealed tight. To cut through it, he needed a tool. That's where Bac Duong's gang connections came in. Through his network, Duong arranged for a hacksaw blade to be smuggled inside, slipping past security undetected. For weeks, they worked in complete silence after lights out, taking turns sawing through the bed frame blocking the vent. Every scrape of metal against metal risked exposing them, but after painstaking effort, they finally broke through. Now they had access to the prison's ventilation system, a network of dark, claustrophobic ducts winding through the jail's infrastructure. But it was a maze, and without a map, they could easily get lost. Nayeri needed inside information. That's when he found an unwitting accomplice, Nusha Farin Ravagi, an ESL teacher at the jail. She was known for her kindness, and Nayeri played into it, befriending her and pretending to be a struggling inmate in need of help. He convinced her to provide a map of the area surrounding the jail, claiming he needed to locate his lawyer's office. In reality, he already knew where it was. He wanted the map for another reason, understanding the jail's structure, the exits, and the neighborhood beyond. Unknowingly, Ravagi gave him exactly what he needed. Meanwhile, Duong's connections came through again, smuggling in a contraband cell phone. This phone was a game changer. It wasn't just for communication, it was their flashlight, their planner, and their way to document every step of their progress. The biggest obstacle stood in their way, a 12-foot climb covered by reinforced iron bars. Cutting through would take months. They were running out of time. That's when they got creative. Using bed sheets, they began fashioning makeshift ropes, tying them together piece by piece. Each night, they practiced scaling the ventilation walls inside their cells, strengthening their grip. For 6 months, they worked in secrecy, memorizing the twists and turns of the vents, cutting through obstacles, and waiting for the perfect moment. Finally, they reached the rooftop. Security cameras covered the area from multiple angles. One wrong move, and they'd be spotted. But they found a blind spot, a tiny section where the cameras couldn't see. The last hurdle was terrifying, a 60-foot drop from the rooftop to the ground. If they fell, they'd die. Using the bedsheet rope, they carefully rappelled down the building. First, Thieu, then Duong, finally Nayeri. As he descended, 2 guards stepped outside for a smoke, just feet away. He froze, one glance upward, and the escape was over. Seconds felt like hours, but the guards never looked up. They finished their cigarettes and walked back inside. Nayeri touched the ground. They were free. Adrenaline pumping, they vanished into the shadows of Orange County. Their first move? Stealing a van from a nearby mechanic's shop. They drove into the night, heading toward Los Angeles, switching vehicles along the way to avoid detection. By morning, news of their escape had exploded. Their faces were on every news channel. Police helicopters circled above, and checkpoints were set up across the city. The largest manhunt in recent history had begun. To evade capture, they split up. They hid in motels using stolen credit cards and cash. But tension grew. The longer they were on the run, the more paranoid they became. After a few days, cracks in their alliance began to show. Baek Duong, overwhelmed by fear, wanted out. He reached out to an old friend, looking for a way to escape further, but his friend panicked. He called the police. Within hours, SWAT teams surrounded Duong's hideout. With nowhere to run, he surrendered. Under pressure, Duong cracked. He provided information about Nayeri and Thieu's whereabouts. With Duong in custody, law enforcement honed in on Nayeri and Thieu. Tracking their movements, they finally cornered them in a rundown motel in San Francisco. SWAT teams stormed the room. Nayeri, the mastermind who had outwitted authorities for months, had nowhere left to run. Within minutes, it was over. The escape that had captured national attention ended in an anticlimactic arrest. The 3 men who had risked everything for freedom were returned to their cells, now under even tighter security. Additional charges were filed, and they were no longer in the same facility. As for Nayeri, he never stopped scheming. Even after his recapture, investigators feared he might be planning his next move, but this time there would be no escape. A perfectly executed prison break undone by paranoia, betrayal, and the one thing they couldn't escape, each other. Please like, subscribe The Escape Files for more thrilling stories.